Hey, Justin Dyson here, Dyson Apiaries. I'm going to do a quick video for you to show you how to assemble frames properly. I get a lot of questions on what type of frames you need to use and also how to assemble them correctly. When I used to do frame exchange with my nukes, I had a lot of problems with frames coming with the frame exchange that weren't assembled properly, and they would fall apart. That's one of the reasons I quit doing frame exchange. So I'm going to show you how to do that correctly today. We'll get in here a little closer. So one of the ways we can do this is with a frame assembly jig. You may or may not ever seen one of those, but I'll kind of show you how that works real quick. You don't have to have one of these, of course, but this allows you to do 10 frames really quickly. So in the configuration I have this in now, I can do deep frames. So that would be just for deeps. But if I take this thing apart, and you can make one of these, they're really not that complicated. Look up some plans online. But there's some bee supply places sell these as well. But so we can also configure this in a shallow or medium configuration. If we're putting shallow frames together, I'm actually going to use this piece right here. So we have these deeper pieces, and you notice it's grooved here for those pieces to go in there. So what we do is we use a shorter piece here, and at this point we can assemble either mediums or shallows. So if we were doing frames in this jig, we would just line all of our pieces up down through here, down the end, and we'll actually just go ahead and use this, but I'll show you a few other things too. So we'll go ahead and line all our pieces up down through here. And what this jig does is it helps hold the frame nice and square, so that we don't have a kind of a yawed frame. And it also holds them all up nice for us, so we can go down through there and nail them really quick. So that would be 10 frames. And so one thing to consider when we're buying frames, kind of pause here for a second. There's two different types of bottom bars and there's two different types of top bars. I only have one type of bottom bar here to show you, but the top bar here, we have a grooved bar. If we notice here on the end, it's not cut. Okay, this is a wedge bar. If we notice, it's cut out here. So this is a grooved, this is a wedge bar. So if we're using a plastic type, like snap-in type foundation, we would use the grooved bar because we don't need the nail. This piece is snaps in. I'll do another video on putting foundation in. We don't necessarily need that wedge, although it will work, but we don't have to cut this wedge out and nail it in. Now, if we're using a crimped wire type foundation or a thin surplus type foundation or a Duragilt or something of that nature, we do need the wedge because this foundation is too flimsy to just hold itself up in the frame. We have to actually nail and pinch the foundation up in the top bar. And with this foundation, you have the little hooks. So I'll show that in another video, but I wanted to make that clear. You have wedge, you have wedge, and you have grooved. So I'm gonna put together wedged here because these are super frames, and I use the crimped wire. And I'm also using a grooved bottom bar. So one of the important things to do is to glue your frames. Glue will hold way more than the nails will ever hold. So I'm going to go down through here and I'm going to put a little glue on these frames. Use a good wood glue. I just use the same thing I put my hive components together with. So then we'll go down through here and we'll assemble these frames. We're just going to put the top bar together here. So I'll do that really quick. So now we have all these frames put together, or the top bars put in. Now we have a couple options here. If we don't have a nail gun, we can use these 1 1/4 nails, just a 1 1/4. You can get them at a hardware store or at the bead supply places, and you would put 2 in each side of the top bar, like so. So the other option is we can use, you can pick up a really cheap little narrow crown stapler. I'm not going to endorse a brand or anything, but 1 1/4 narrow crown staples. A wide crown stapler is even better, but the narrow crowns are really cheap. So if we use a little narrow crown stapler, we can use these 1 1/4 staples, and I like to put 2 in each top. So I'm gonna go down through here and nail these. I just use 1 nail. I don't know. I think it'll do just as well either way. The glue holds the majority of it. So now I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to flip it right over and put some glue on this bottom bar as well. And you see I've glued several frames together with this. I have a pile of glue because I never wipe it off. I have to scrape that off from time to time. So go down through there and get some glue on it. Again, I'm going to be using the grooved bottom bars. Let's get those snapped in here. And sometimes you get one of these where it's not notched out correctly, and it's pretty easy just to take your knife and take a little edge off of it and it'll go right on in. Don't force it or you'll break your frame. So again, I'm going to use the same nails, or I could use these 1 1/4 nails. If I wanted to use the 1 1/4 nails, I would put 2 of those in each end, like so. Or I can use the stapler, which I prefer, a little quicker. So there's that. So next step, we just pull that up, boom, drop these pieces out of the middle, and we have 10 assembled frames. Now, one additional thing you could do, you do also want to make sure that you wipe that glue out, have a wet rag. One additional thing you can do, if you'd like, is you can come back here on the sides of these frames and put 1 3/4 inch nail right through the side of that. And that just gives a little extra support to that frame for pulling it up, making sure that it doesn't pull off. That's a disaster in a beehive if you pull that frame up and it actually comes apart. So that's how we put together a frame. Same way you put together a frame for deeps, same way you put them together for mediums or shallows. All of them are the same. Just paying attention to what types of top and bottom bars we're using, whether we're using a groove top or a wedge top like this one, or a grooved bottom like this one, or a divided bottom bar. So with crimped wire foundation, wedge top and grooved bottom is preferred. And then of course with the plastic foundation, we're going to use groove top, groove bottom. So again, I appreciate you checking us out, and subscribe to our channel if you don't mind. Dyson Apiaries. Thank you.